Hello and welcome once again to another edition of IFN News.
And we've just seen an early finish to the day's proceedings at the Old Bailey trial of Regina v Fellows, which perhaps was just as well because the summing up by the prosecution was lengthy and contained numerous cross-references, so much so that he was in danger of debuting the world's most potent verbal sedative. A contrast indeed to the last witness to give testimony, Ben Fellows' adoptive mother, Stephanie. Giving a respectful nod to her health, she was examined gently, but the result in his summing up clearly drew on her evidence extracted in the morning, which had reference to saying that had she known about the alleged incident 20 years earlier, that she would have acted on it. A stark contradiction indeed to Fellows' statement under cross-examination yesterday, in which he had claimed otherwise. The case, of course, will conclude tomorrow with a defence statement. Well, welcome once again to an IFN News Extra, and again it's our pleasure to introduce to you Deborah Williams from the Kent Freedom Movement. Deborah, today another interesting day.
It is,
and
yeah.
Contradictions, well again it's the course of today, and I mean towards the summing up for the prosecution, it looks like what was drawn on what the mother said in the morning, regarding her information about the knowledge of such an incident was in fact recent, but isn't that in stark contradiction to what Ben Fellows had said yesterday?
Well, in fact, Ben Fellows said that he told his mother as soon as he got back from his role in the Cook report. But when the prosecution asked the mother whether she knew about the allegations, she said he never told me about the allegations at all, and he told me about the casting couches, but mainly involving other people, not himself, nothing serious. But I did know that he had to run the gauntlet.
Running the gauntlet, I mean that's quite a thing to let a young child do, but he was 19 then, so I suppose she was beginning to let go of him as a young man to go into the acting fraternity, I suppose.
Yeah, she was getting a bit more confident in his ability and to look after himself, I expect. Yeah.
Well, she struck me as a very honest woman, and also a very caring person as well. I mean, obviously from her expertise as a secretary at a legal practice, she was careful to keep the notes, the documents over the years, information and so on. So I suppose she would come across as a fairly reliable person. You could probably take her to the bank on what she says. Yeah. But I thought, what a caring person. I mean, she was looking after this young man she's adopted, and with her husband at the time, they were taking him up to London on a regular basis to ensure he got these roles and to help nurture him in his career. So, I thought a very credible witness and a very pleasant person.
Yeah, she was a very nice person. Yeah, I got that impression, and very trustworthy. Yeah,
that's right. So, what a shame when she ended up being questioned. I suppose when the police go around to question her. I was surprised, quite frankly, and I would believe what she said, that they talked about how he's adopted, who adopted him. What on earth was all that about? Yes,
she said it was strange. She said they just kept going on and on, asking her about the adoption of Ben, and she couldn't understand why, and her husband at the time was saying, this is very strange, why they keep mentioning that? And she said they never seem to want to mention anything or ask questions about the Cook report.
It's strange, they didn't ask for the evidence. She'd obviously got that filed away, so she was probably waiting for them to say, and can we have something? Well, we do know actually that this morning, late yesterday, some evidence was presented, a memo, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
And this morning when it was presented for all to see in court, they'd actually drawn upon the expertise of Sylvia Jones, and she didn't dismiss it as a forgery. She said, "Yep, well, probably." Of course, it was neither here nor there what it was, but it did tend to corroborate some incident that had happened that he'd been asked to take notes about. So, by the by, she kept a record of these things, but they didn't seem to want it, and they actually, it looks like the defence side actually had to go and get this thing to prove a point that he is telling the truth. So there was an attempt by the defence there to try to make it quite clear, don't say everything he says is untrue, that there were certainly contradictions. Now, a contradiction I want to ask you about is the job that he was offered.
Yes.
Exactly what was the job that he was offered? Can you remind me when the Central offered him?
Well, by his mother's say, when she was talking, and what we've heard, what we saw in documents, he was taken on as a researcher. But we were led to believe that he was an actor, so that's a bit strange.
Well, it opens your eyes up a little bit, because if his job was to play an acting role, okay, obviously playing a part of a 15-year-old, and to, okay, that's the job. Is that a researcher's job?
You wouldn't think so, would you?
Technically, to be legally protected, I would have thought you'd have had to say, yes, I was an actor acting out this role. Whereas an actor playing a researcher's part is, you're a researcher, or are you playing the part of a researcher? But what did the contract say? Because the contract was passed around, wasn't it?
The contract said he was a researcher.
Right, so that's established then, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we were saying earlier, we're wondering whether that's the reason why his mother didn't know what was going on. About his role.
Well, arguably, it could be to placate her, just to stop her worrying about him being involved in a sting that had sexual tendencies that she might not be happy with.
Yeah.
But she did seem comfortable and said, well, yeah, he's just going to act that part out. So that knocks that one out of the way too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it does leave the door open for you to ask yourself, well, why was that the title? Why not actor?
Yeah.
Researcher is not an actor. I've remembered something.
Right.
She did say when Mr. Jeffs, from Richard Jeffs,
Yeah.
suggested to her an opportunity for him at Central, he did say it's a researcher's role, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Right.
He did.
And she said something along the lines of, well, I don't know if he'd actually be interested in that.
Because it's not the sort of thing he would do. Yeah.
Well, that's not for us to deliberate upon much further. I'm sure the jury has got its job cut out tomorrow, and I would imagine the devil's in the detail.
Of course.
Critically, we've got to hear the defence's final summing up tomorrow, so we don't know what that's going to be.
No.
But I would say, today I thought that the prosecution's summary was very, very lengthy. I think people were very, very tired.
Yeah.
There were so many points to consider. That's a lot of consideration to make, and I think it was in danger of blanketing over things a little bit. It'd be nice to have a big strong point, wouldn't it? So the question is, would the defence put a really big strong point in tomorrow? Will they gain the ground? Well, we don't know. What do you think tomorrow?
Well, I think it from today it didn't look very good for Ben, but there was quite amusing. I did pick out a couple of quotes from the prosecution.
Oh, go on, let's hear
I'll read them
Deborah.
out to you. The first one was, the fire destroyed the film, but didn't destroy the memories. As relation to the Iron Mountain fire.
Oh, he was a very selective prosecutor, wasn't he? Because people's memories do go over the years, and he did try to claim that one. It's a bit naughty, isn't it?
Naughty,
well, I
yes.
suppose he's trying to get the jury to agree with him.
And then he made there was another little quote where he was referring to Ben, and he said, search for the truth turned into the search for headlines.
He's a naughty prosecutor, isn't he? Well, the one thing is, it's been reasonably good-humoured throughout the whole.
It has, yeah.
But like I say, tomorrow's the day, I suppose, when it's going to be submitted to the jury. Let's keep watching.
Yes.
Tune in, join IFN to see the final day tomorrow. From the team and myself, thanks for joining us today.